We've got with us this morning Chris Parrish, one of the nation's top turkey callers, and he's a call designer for night and hail game calls. And Chris, one of the turkeys that's fun to hunt is a Rio Grande gobbler. There's usually a bunch of them bunched up, and they'll talk all day, but sometimes they won't come in. Tell us how you hunt Rio Grande turkeys.
That's the most frustrating turkey I've ever hunted in my life, just simply because they stay flocked up. And I think a lot of the reason that they do, if you're familiar with Texas or southern Oklahoma, places where you typically find a lot of Rios, they do a lot of feeding. And those turkeys are used to going to a feeder every day of some sort. One of the ways I found a couple of years ago, we were having troubles trying to film a hunt. And I won't hunt around a feeder. It's a personal thing, something I won't do. I want to call that turkey in, or at least be hunting him one-on-one on what I call proper terms. I don't mind crawling, but proper terms. And Texas is not a good place to crawl. Simply, I go in and split those turkeys up. Bust them up, get them out of those flocks, just like you would bust them up in the fall. You get those gobblers away from those hens, and I will promise you their attitudes will change in a few hours, and they will be very, very ready to come to a turkey call. Don't be afraid to do that.
How and when do you bust a flock?
The best time I've found to bust a flock is in the evening before they go to roost. If you can get them split up and get a couple gobblers off by themselves where they're 400 or 500 yards from any of the hens, when they get up the next morning, I will promise you the first hen sound they hear, they're fixing to come and check it out.
Where will you set up after you break up a flock?
As close to them as I can. I just watch in the direction that they go. And when you're hunting places like Texas and places that are sparse of roost areas, they're not going to be too far from there, and that's the key, is just watch where they go, just like you would if you're splitting up a fall flock. Slide in there, try to get within 100, 150 yards of them if you can. In that situation, typically if you get within a couple hundred yards, they're probably going to come to you without any question.
Okay, thank you, sir. We've got with us today Chris Parrish, and Chris has probably won more turkey calling contests than anybody in the world. Chris, what all have you won?
Well, we'll talk about the big ones. I've been blessed enough to win 11 NWTF Grand National titles, 8 world titles, 3 U.S. Open titles, and 4 Mid-America Open titles.
So you've done it all, and you've hunted all the turkeys there are in the United States, and have you been to Mexico?
I haven't been to Mexico. It scared me off a couple years ago, so when things get unheated, I'll probably go back and try to finish it all out. But I have been fortunate enough to take a couple Grand Slams.
Probably the toughest turkey of all to take in the United States, not because he's any harder to hunt, but just getting access to him, is the Osceola gobbler of Florida. What makes him different, and how do you hunt him?
Well, to me, what made him different was exactly that, the access to him, trying to find places to hunt him and hunt a true Osceola. As we go along, a lot of things in that part of the country, if you don't go far enough south, you're getting a little bit of that eastern strain in there. So to find a true Osceola, then find access to him. The thing I found out with Osceolas is they are absolutely sensitive to weather changes. And if you don't hit the weather right, you get a cold snap, you go nil without hearing turkeys gobble. When they don't gobble and you can't put a visual in them on those swamps, they get tough to hunt. So, you have to catch everything right and catch them right, because there's not as many of them, or they're in real secluded areas. You just have to be right on those turkeys, and it takes a little bit of scouting, a little bit of time. Good to know landowners in the area.
Another thing about the Osceola, because you're hunting him pretty much in thick cover and swamps, he oftentimes sounds like he's further away than he actually is, doesn't he?
Absolutely. It's like terrain features make turkeys do a lot of things, and that thick cover, when you're hunting what I call Cambodia, you tend to spook turkeys if you don't watch what's going on, and that's what happens a lot of times to those birds. You go in on them, they're gobbling, you think they're 150 yards and they're 75 yards, and you go 5 yards too far before you sit down, and that can ruin the hunt real quick.
And these birds, unlike a lot of other types of turkeys, they'll walk through water, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen them strut through water. I mean, no problem at all. Have 3 or 4 inches of water up to their wings. Just watch out for gators, but don't be afraid to set up where you've got a little bog between you and them. They'll come right to you.
What's one secret to taking an Osceola?
Any tip that I can give on Osceola is use the terrain to your advantage. If it's thick and you think you can get tight on him, get tight on him. Get as close to him as you possibly can. And also, get in those little open glade areas before they get to them. They're coming to those open areas to strut. If you'll get in those open areas before they get there, you're going to have action in there sometime during that day.
Okay, thank you, Chris.